A very good evening to all parents, caregivers, and everyone who's tuning in with us right now. A warm welcome to our Facebook Live session by MOE. Ask Me Anything About Unlocking the Secrets of Quality Sleep for Our Children. I'm sure sleep is indeed a very important topic that's close to many of our hearts. In fact, it is really very relatable. I'm sure most of you do have some questions in regards to quality sleep. Perhaps some of you are actually thinking, does sleep really have an impact on my child's development, well being, and even their health? Or perhaps maybe you are also considering, is it really too late, to implement good sleeping habits for my children if they're already in upper primary? How does good quality sleep actually look like? Well, before unlocking the secrets to this quality sleep, I would like to just remind everyone on this Facebook Live session, we have our comment section that's open for all of you to post any questions that you have for our panelists. At the same time, please remember to be respectful to one another. We would like to create a conducive and safe environment for everyone to be discussing in this session. Do remember to stay on topic. And of course, we generously encourage everyone to please share your valuable experiences with all of us so that we can also know what works for you and we can encourage all the parents that's here with us today. So without further ado, I would like to start our session and invite everyone on this exciting adventure and dive into the world of parenting and quality sleep. So here we have with us today our two lovely distinguished panelists. We have Dr. Tan Yi Hua and Dr. Ting Chun Yi. Let's welcome them. Hi, Dr. Tan and Dr. Ting. Thank you so much for being here with us. I think all the parents here are in for a great treat. I personally am looking forward to hearing more strategies and tips from both of you in regards to quality sleep. And in fact, today's session is not just going to be you listening to us. It is going to be very interactive. We do have some poll questions that we will be launching, and we are looking forward to all your wonderful responses. I think this will give us a little idea of what you are interested in, and we hope that both doctors will be able to address some of the concerns that everyone have online. But due to time, we may not be able to answer all the questions. So please pardon us and be very patient, but we're going to do our very best to answer as many questions as we can. Yeah. All right. So talking about quality sleep, I think many parents out there, the fact that they are tuning in, they are definitely very concerned about whether their children is having quality sleep. Right. So would you say that, quality sleep is somewhat related to this term that we have been hearing recently? That's what we call sleep hygiene. Maybe Dr. Ting can share a little bit with us.
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of quality sleep, it really means like having good quality sleep, meaning that you're able to sleep quite quickly, you're able to sleep through the night, and the next day you're actually able to wake up feeling refreshed, and you can have a well-rested night. So I think if you're asking about sleep habits, I think that's something that we can also cover maybe a bit later when we talk about the healthy sleep habits in children. But just to answer quickly, sleep hygiene basically means like healthy sleep habits, and then we will cover later on how we can perhaps enforce healthy sleep habits in our children.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that, because I think sometimes it can be a little, confusing, where sometimes we hear the term sleep hygiene and then next moment we hear good sleeping habits. So sometimes some parents could be wondering, is it something similar? Is it a totally different thing altogether? Yeah, so stay tuned for that, because I think Dr. Ting has kept all of us in suspense. She says that she's going to share this with us later on. Right? Okay, I think there are some poll questions that will be launched. So we would like to find out from the first poll question, especially from all our parents in a short while, what are some things that you are actually interested to find out about quality sleep? All right, but before that, we're going to have a quick chit chat and introduction from both our doctors. All right, so thank you for the quick introduction. I think we would like to also know a little bit more about yourself. So maybe Dr. Tan, let's hear a little bit from you. Share a bit more about your medical expertise and maybe something that you hope that the parents can be taking away from tonight's session.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dr. Tan. I'm from a consultant pediatrician in KK Hospital. I specialize in children who have respiratory conditions as well as sleep conditions. And I'm very happy that I'm here today to be able to share with you some of my experiences that I've learned from my fellow parents, parents in the clinics, about how they are able to make their children sleep better. So throughout this session, I hope that I can share some of my experiences, what I've learned from them with everyone that's on today's session.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tan. I think we are all definitely looking forward to hearing all the experiences. I think all these accumulated experiences would definitely be very beneficial for everyone who's tuning in with us right now. All right, over to you, Dr. Ting. Would you, share a little bit more about yourself and also what's something that you hope, the parents can take away with from you?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Ting. I'm an associate consultant in the respiratory medicine service at KK Hospital. So just like Dr. Tan, I also mainly see children with lung problems as well as various sleep conditions. I'm also a mom of 3 children. So I'm also with all of you in this whole journey where we navigate through the various sleep challenges that our children face. So I hope that through this session, all of you will be able to understand why we need to prioritize sleep, and hopefully go away with some actionable tips that you can try to apply to your children when it comes to dealing with their various sleep problems.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ting. I know many of you, probably when you heard Dr. Ting sharing that she's a mother of 3, everyone had paused for a while and then looked at her like, are you sure? Well, I think, we have to hear more from Dr. Ting herself. Perhaps it's all due to good quality sleep that is keeping her youthfulness there. All right. But let's go to our first poll question. I think our viewers out there have generously shared their responses. I am attending this session to find out more about, I think most of our viewers out there have stated that 51% would like to find out more tips on how to build healthier sleep habits. All right. And 30% would like to find out insights into good sleeping habits. And of course, then we have still quite a handful of people who would like to find out tips on how they can actually address sleeping difficulties, right? Yeah, so don't worry, I'm sure Dr. Ting and Dr. Tan, they are all ready to share, their tips and strategies, in regards to these areas, but we're going to tackle them one at a time. All right?
It's actually a very reassuring poll because if you are very interested to find out about tips on how to build healthier sleep habits, that means you are actually knowing that good sleep habits are very important. And it's very reassuring for everyone who's joining this session that they are not just wanting to find out about what good sleep is all about. They actually want to know ways and whatever they're doing, whether it's right or wrong, to actually get their children to have good sleep habits.
Yeah, there's definitely, I can tell you are a very observant doctor for sure. From the numbers, you can already see that actually our viewers out there, they do know that, having good quality sleep is actually very important. So they want to know how. That's the important question of how can I implement this for my children? All right. And talking about that, in preparation for today's session, I came across this quote by Thomas Dekker that says, sleep is the golden chain that ties health and our bodies together. How true it is, right? Yeah. And I think we are on this good note, on finding out why prioritizing our sleep will actually help our children in developing, whether it's a more positive, healthier mental well-being, or even towards their physical health. So perhaps, Dr. Ting, you could share a little bit more, on the importance of prioritizing sleep. And of course, you can share a little bit of your secret or so of how to keep your youthfulness. But more importantly, our parents are here because of their children. So do share more with us on how would it help their children, especially school-going children. Yeah,
sure. Yeah, so I think a lot of us, in fact my children also, they think that sleep is, your brain is not even doing anything when they're sleeping. Your brain is just resting. And actually we will be surprised to know how wrong that is, because actually when we are asleep, a lot of things happen, right? So actually I like to sort of classify the importance of sleep into 2 main groups. So one is how sleep can be important for our bodies, and the other is how sleep can be important for our brains. So in terms of our bodies, I think a lot of studies have shown how sleep can be very important, mainly in the growth of children, because we know that when children are sleeping, not when everyone is sleeping actually, the brain actually secretes growth hormones, and that's how our children can grow taller and better. Secondly, sleep is also very important in maintaining a healthy immune system. many studies have been done that show that chronic sleep deprivation, so if you don't sleep enough for long periods of time, actually you can be more susceptible to the common viruses. So definitely having good quality sleep is important, because during our sleep is when all this cell growth, tissue repair happens, and this really happens only when we're having good and enough sleep. In terms of our brains, which I'm sure a lot of parents will want their kids to do well in school, so sleep is actually very important for that, because it's only when we're asleep that a lot of the learning and development happens, and also there's a lot of consolidation of memory. It's also during sleep where this whole decluttering process happens. So you can imagine like your brain is sort of like your computer or your phone, where after some time you will need to start deleting your photos and videos. If not, you don't have enough space to put new ones in. So similarly, like our brains at night when we are asleep, when our children are asleep, their brains will actually have to sort of go through this decluttering process to then make space for the new things that they're going to learn in school the next day, for them to form new neural pathways. And it just helps them to be able to learn things so much better and retain things better when they are learning in school. Another thing is also that this good sleep helps with like all the higher order thinking functions, your executive functioning, your abstract thinking, all the skills that your children need to solve their maths problem sums, write their compositions. So definitely important. Good quality sleep is definitely important. And also, I'm sure all of you have realized that when your kids don't sleep enough, they tend to be very cranky, more moody, more irritable. So sleep has an important role to play in terms of this emotional regulation, this regulation of the mood. Yeah, so if children sleep better, they tend to have also less of all these behavioral challenges that we parents often have to deal with as well. Yeah, so that's how sleep can be actually really, really important in terms of like brain, and I like to think of brain and body lah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you classified that really, really well. I think it made it really easy even for our parents and, viewers out there to understand, how important it is to these two components. And I'm sure the main thing that strikes out to a lot of parents is if you would like your child to do well, they need to have good quality sleep. All right. That's actually very, very important. And then talking about, how it can affect the behavioral of a child when they don't have enough sleep. Just a personal question, since you have, since you're a mother of three, right? You have 3 kids. So maybe you could share a little bit more, with everyone. So do you also experience that? I mean, since you're like an expert to quality sleep, right? But do you, experience that angstiness or, behavioral issue even with your children?
Yeah, I mean, definitely my kids know that they have a bedtime routine and everything, but definitely it doesn't mean that I'm immune to all the bedtime resistance, bedtime struggles. So yeah, I still face all those problems, and it is through working with them, through consistent routines, having proper boundaries and being firm with all these boundaries, and just keep connecting with them and keep reminding them about what we need to do. And yeah, there's no magic answer, there's no magic pill that I can offer anybody, but yeah, it's just through patience and consistency that we have to achieve.
Yes.
Yeah, it's still work in progress.
You can tell Dr. Ting is definitely very real. So she's really sharing it from the bottom of her heart, that I think every parent, we do know that the journey is always, work in progress. So just to assure everyone, we can tell Dr. Ting, even though she's a doctor, but she's also a parent, and she goes through the same journey that everyone is also possibly going through, right? And I think I like the keywords that you used, patience and consistency. I think that is something very helpful and useful. Sometimes because parents are very tired, and then, we tend to like close one eye. And then, of course, the next day we suffer the backlash from it. Then the kids get angsty, and then you're like, oh, yeah. True story from my own personal experience. So I personally also find that it's very important to enforce, the good quality sleep. If not, next day they're gonna just be very upset, or they'll be angsty with us, and then we parents will, have a more difficult time. But I believe that everyone is actually doing their very best. So thank you for sharing, the benefits of having good quality sleep. So perhaps maybe we can hear a little bit from Dr. Tan, from your own experiences, right? What are some of the common maybe impact that all these children experience when they have lack of quality sleep?
Yes. So for children who don't sleep well, they are at risk of a lot of other concomitant problems that they can face. So more of the more short-term problems they can face, they are not able to wake up in time in school. The parents may have problems trying to make them go to school on time. Sometimes they may also have problems in terms of concentrating in class. The teacher may find them a little bit more forgetful, more sleepy in class. And these are really short-term consequences that we can commonly see. And they are actually alarm bells that the parents should pick up to say that, oh, my children are actually not doing so well. If you get a feedback from the school teachers that is there something wrong at home in terms of the sleep habits and everything, and that's why the child is not sleeping well. But in the long run, actually having poor sleep has a lot of consequences in terms of our general health. So taking away just the cognitive function, so they may not be able to learn so well in class, their academic performance may be affected. In addition, actually, they are actually at risk of metabolic and cardiovascular health issues. So in the long run, they can run into problems in terms of like high blood pressure, they can have problems in terms of heart disease. And sometimes when they don't have good quality of sleep, they are at a very low energy level on a day-to-day basis. So they may not be able to do so much physical activities. They may be a little bit more easily tired. They do not want to participate in all the physical activities. That put them at risk of obesity. It becomes a very vicious cycle because if they don't really want to exercise because they are overweight, and then they sort of just want to sit there and not move. They don't sleep well, and all the more they will put on more weight, and all the more they won't move. And therefore, in the long run, it has a lot of consequences that we may not see immediately, but we should be worried about if we don't do something about their poor sleep habits.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's definitely very insightful and helpful, Dr. Tan. Like what you said, through your experiences in seeing the different patients, I think you have gathered, enough of these examples, from all these patients where you notice that these common symptoms starts to appear for those children who don't really have good quality sleep. On that note of good quality sleep, right? So could you advise the parents out there, right? How long is considered a good duration for good quality sleep?
Okay, so when we come to quality of sleep, it's not just about the duration. So a lot of parents concentrate on the amount of time that your children should sleep. So for example, in primary school age children, we will say that they're supposed to sleep between 9 and 11 hours per day so that they can function appropriately in the daytime. But every children is a little bit different, and that's why there's always a range. Some children can function with 9 hours of sleep, but some children will actually need a little bit longer. So that's why there is a range. And therefore, we really should try to achieve that. And other than duration, it has got a little bit to do with the quality, like what you were asking. For example, we all know that for some children, the problems of sleep that they face, maybe they are not able to initiate sleep. They may not be able to fall asleep. They take a long time, and that means that they may not have good quality sleep later. Some of them, they may fall asleep, but they have frequent awakening in the nights. So it's actually quite common for children to fall asleep, for children to wake up at night actually, but they must be able to fall back asleep on their own without waking up a lot. So we do all wake up in the night actually, unknowingly, but we will fall back asleep quite readily without us knowing. So that's quite common, but it should not be too frequent, and that will disrupt our good quality of sleep. And therefore, one of the main gauge of why someone has good quality of sleep, I think the first question I would usually ask is, when they wake up, do they feel refreshed? If they really feel like they have a good quality sleep, in the morning when the morning comes, the children will be all ready to jump up the bed and go to school to meet their friends, their classmates, because they are all ready to face the challenges for the day. But if they are not, then something is wrong with the quality of sleep.
Yeah, thank you very for sharing that, Dr. Tan. I think I can personally relate to it, because like when my children actually get that sufficient quality sleep, they will be able to wake up without me even waking them up. They will be the first to knock on our door and say, all right, we're all ready for school. Yeah, but then when they actually have like not enough sleep, the next day you will try to get them up out of bed, but they're just I just can't get up.
So tired.
Yeah, right. It's like so tired. So I believe and I can imagine that all the parents and viewers out there, you can totally relate with it also, because it also happens to us as adults sometimes. Okay. I think before moving on, we do have a question from a parent. Thank you very much for this question. Sanju Malani. I hope that I pronounced your name correctly. All right. Pardon me if I didn't. All right. So let me just read out the question for everyone. My child just entered P1, and while we try to get her to sleep by 8:30, she usually stirs in bed. thinking about various things before falling asleep around 9:30. I am not sure if she also has slept soundly through the night. So what can I do to help? So doctors, I think you touched on it a little bit just now, Dr. Tan. So perhaps you want to further elaborate on this question and see, what can she do to help?
So if you look at the question, because he tries to put the child to bed by 8:30, but she only goes to bed by 9:30, that means she takes almost an hour to initiate sleep. That's considered a little bit long. I think if you read different books, actually they will tell you different things. I'm not sure for myself, I would say initiation of sleep is about 15 to 20 minutes for yourself.
20 minutes.
Yeah, so it's 20 minutes. So that's a little bit long. So we really have to find out why is it that she is not falling asleep. Has it got to do with something prior to the start of initiating sleep? That's why she's not sleeping too soundly. Is she too stimulated prior to that? Or whether she has a routine prior to that to put her into sleep. And to know whether someone has sleep soundly, like I've touched earlier, it will be when she wakes up in the morning. If she feels refreshed, she doesn't complain of early morning headaches, she's really waking up on her own, and she doesn't feel sleepy in the day, she can function quite well. That means she probably has slept quite soundly through the night. Some of our children do stirs in bed, like I said, we do awake unknowingly, and therefore sometimes we do shift the position a little bit. But that doesn't mean that they are not sleeping soundly. They actually do, and therefore it's sometimes good also to check in with your children every other many weeks and see, do you feel that you have slept soundly, and pick up some alarm bells in the day-to-day functioning, whether there's something that we need to address.
All right.
Yeah, I think Dr. Tan also touched on the bedtime routine, but I'm not sure whether Sanju's child has a bedtime routine and sort of whether how the sleep schedule is like. I mean, I know this child just entered P1, so definitely there is quite a transition from preschool to primary 1. So how the transition was happening, and is there, I mean, if the child is always thinking about various things before falling asleep, could there be something that the child might be worried about perhaps, or is there something that's keeping the child awake? I think one more important thing to consider is also the sleep environment. So whether the environment is conducive for your child to fall asleep. So ideally, we have a quiet, dark environment, not too noisy. I don't know whether there are any other siblings around that could be making a bit of noise, and whether there's any like screens in the room to, make it more difficult for her to fall asleep. But yeah, so actually there are a couple of things that perhaps we can sort of think about and see how we can try to help with your child's sleep.
Thank you very much for that question. I hope that both doctors' advice and little tips have actually helped you and your child. But I think I like what you mentioned. I think we need to also take note that sometimes children are going through transitions also. So when they're going through transition, especially for P1, I think we can say that sometimes they take time to adjust, right? But going back to what Dr. Ting mentioned, consistency and patience, all right, is the key to success. Definitely. Because, I mean, sometimes, to be very honest, as parents, we try, certain strategies. We read it from somewhere. We attend maybe, this Facebook Live session, and we're like, we tried one day, and then it doesn't work, right? And then later on, we feel that, this strategy is not working, or this routine is not working. So I think what's very important is to be very patient, wait it out. I think what Dr. Tan have also mentioned, sometimes you just have to give it a few weeks, to take note. And then I think the best feedback is from their children to find out how are they feeling, do they feel refreshed, or do they actually feel even more tired. You can also get feedback from the teachers. Ask them how are their children responding in class, how they're feeling in class. I think you can also communicate with the parents, with the teachers even at school, to gather some of these valuable information to assess from there. All right, we do have another question from another parent. Thank you so much. So it is from Lakshmi Prasanna. All right. The question is, please share connection between respiratory issues on children and the linkages to sleep quality.
Okay.
Who would like to take this question?
I will take this question.
All right.
I love this question. I have to say this is a very interesting question.
It is.
Because I would have not expected someone to sort of think that whether there are some underlying medical concerns. Just to clarify, it may be a respiratory conditions leading to poor sleep quality, or it could be a poor sleep quality that you're worried that the child may develop respiratory concerns. So in a child who has poor sleep quality, and sometimes if you notice, if your child has fallen sick, they have some cough, runny nose. Sometimes you may hear some snoring. And some parents may think that, snoring is actually normal. It's not normal, actually. So any child who has snoring, but it can happen on a daily basis, or it is very loud, or it's getting worse, or there are episodes whereby they stop breathing or they choke, it's actually not normal. And therefore, if you have all these symptoms that I'm telling you about, and therefore this can lead to frequent night awakening, you may not have good quality of sleep, then therefore you don't feel refreshed in the morning. This leads to poor sleep quality. And therefore, if you have any respiratory concerns, actually you really should bring your children to see the doctor, because they should be evaluated. Proper evaluation should be done to see whether the child has what we are most worried about, which is this condition called obstructive sleep apnea. So for some children, because they are at the age whereby they can have big tonsils, they can have very bad allergic rhinitis, which means that the nose is very sensitive, especially these few weeks when the weather is very cold. They actually do have problems in terms of having blocked nose, and therefore they don't sleep well because of the sneezing, the running nose, and this can lead to very poor sleep quality. And if we don't treat this adequately, it may escape into a very poor sleep quality and have subsequently dire consequences, which is why it's very important to actually seek medical advice when you think that there is some respiratory concerns.
All right, thank you very much. I mean, that's why we have both doctors here to be able to address, such very important question, because it's like, a vicious cycle.
Yes.
Yeah. So everything is linked to one another. You don't get good quality sleep, it might lead to some health issues. And then maybe it could be a health issue thing, and then therefore the child is not able to have that good quality sleep. Yeah. So that is, I think, very good that you managed to point it out. Yeah. So it's something that you might want to observe. And if, you find that your child is still experiencing this some respiratory issues, etc. I think what Dr. Tan is also encouraging is that immediately, perhaps you can go and seek doctor's advice also, and see how you can help your child. All right, so I think a lot of parents are actually asking questions already in relation to good sleeping habits, right? And I think we're touching a little bit on that. So before we move on, we would like to just do a quick wrap up on the first segment that we have been talking about, the importance of sleep. How does it benefit our child's well-being and their health and their development? So just a very quick one. I think quality sleep, as we have heard from the doctors, it definitely helps, in terms of their growth. I remember even my own mother from young, telling me, you better sleep early, so that your hair can grow, you can grow taller, good for your brain. So actually our parents do have some wisdom, even in the past, right? So it must be coming from somewhere. All right. And also it helps them, especially in their studies, when they're in school, help them to be very alert throughout the day, help in their cognitive memory, and more importantly, good quality sleep actually maintains, a healthy immune system for your child. And if you're wondering, how many hours should your child be actually sleeping, school-going children, I would say, like what doctors have mentioned, 9 to 11 hours. But do take note, it's not just about the quantity, it's also about the quality sleep that your child is getting, right? And then on the other extreme end, we want to find out also a little bit about the impact it might have on your children if they do not have good quality sleep. So as you can see, there are two categories again: short-term impact, where you find that your child would have difficulty in concentrating, maybe some, moodiness, and also it can lead to, some behavioral issues, right? And then whereas if it's the long-term effect, we may not see it now, right? Like what you mentioned, Dr. Tan, but it could happen in the long run if we don't, really encourage our children to really develop these good sleeping habits. It can actually lead to obesity, right? Because it's a vicious cycle. They feel tired. They don't want to participate in, activities, PE, or even outdoors. And then later, they're just like, just want to laze around. And then after which, everything else goes in that spiral from there. And of course, from some of the things that I've already mentioned, it can also lead to high blood pressure, stroke, neurobehavioral and cognitive impairment. So these are some things that parents, you might really want to take note of. That is why, really encouraging our children to have good quality sleep. It's really very crucial. All right. Okay. So moving forward to the next part, talking about good sleeping habits. I think we would say by now, parents early on have already mentioned that this is the part where they are very interested to know the how. The how is very important, right? And I think we have actually taken a poll once again for question number 2. How confident are you in supporting your children in getting sufficient sleep during the school season? So 47% says that they are facing some difficulties, And then 32%, they're neutral, good days, challenging days. And then, of course, we have quite a fair share, a handful that says 21% that says they are quite confident. So, Dr. Ting and Dr. Tan, what do you think of this right here, right now, in front of us? The numbers, the percentage of our parents, sharing their genuine concern. They know it's important, but a lot of them are actually facing some difficulties. Yeah.
Actually, I'm quite heartened by that 21% who said that they are very confident.
Yes.
I think they put the children to sleep first. Then they join this session.
They're like, yes, the kids are asleep. Now I can join.
I think so. Right.
Yeah. But the 47%, which is almost half the people who are joining, and pretty much that's why you're in this session. But I really want to tell you that putting a child to sleep, be at any age, is really not a problem that you face alone. It's a problem that a lot of parents actually say. They really do come to my clinic sometime, and we do share with them some of their ways to get better sleeping habits. And really, that sometimes I do have parents who come to my clinic once, and after that, they never came back. Because that one session, I will load them with so much information, which I hope I can load you today with, that we can share with Dr. Ting as well here, so that we can have your child getting better sleeping habits, and so that you will feel more empowered and confident in getting them to sleep. So please throw in more questions. Practical questions, practical tips are going to come out to you. Make it as practical as possible. Yeah.
All right. So as we can tell, Dr. Tan and Dr. Ting are really looking forward to your questions. So, of course, without further ado, let's throw them one question now.
Sure.
Okay. So we have a question from Jae Woon Yoon, right? Again, sorry if I mispronounced your name. But let's see, what question does this parent have? What should we do if two kids want to sleep at different timings? I think this is a very real question because, it depends on the dynamics of the family, right? One could be in preschool and then one could be, in primary school, or maybe one could be even in secondary school, right? So different schedules, different timings. So what happens?
Yeah, so I can answer this question. So actually, my kids don't all sleep at the same time too. My two older kids, they sleep in the same room, but they sleep at different times. So I'm not sure how old your kids are, but it really depends on your own family situation and your whole social circumstances, and also how your kids go to bed. So my kids actually, they kind of sleep independently. So like my oldest one, he goes to sleep first, so I put him to bed, and then I will stay with him for maybe like 5-10 minutes just to be there with him, and then I will go out and then I will settle my other kid, and then I'll bring the next one in. Yeah, so I'm not sure. So actually, I think there's no right or wrong answer to this. Your kids don't all have to sleep at the same time. They all have different schedules. They all have different lives. So yeah, it's not really like something that you must make sure that all your kids sleep at the same time. It really depends on their how old they are also.
Yeah, and sometimes like what one of our viewer has said, that Zoe said that consistent is the key, right? It's again about having a bedtime routine. So we can have two children who go to sleep at two different timing, but the bedtime routine remains the same.
Yeah.
The activities, how we try to put them to sleep, initiate to sleep, has to be the same. But of course, one of the things is if they both sleep in the same room, but for Dr. Ting's children, very lucky because he can put the second one later instead. The first one is not awakened. But sometimes if it is too noisy or you have to switch on the light, then it can be problematic. So ideally, it would be sitting in a separate setting in two different rooms. But of course, we all know our living space may sometimes not allow us to be sleeping in different rooms. So it may be a little bit difficult. Then we will then have to communicate with the children. The first one who goes to bed will have to be told that you will fall asleep, but there will be a second child. Hopefully, it's someone who is probably older, and he or she needs to understand that it is important that you will fall asleep at a later timing, but you do not disturb your younger sibling falling asleep. And he is older, he will understand, he will probably be able to cooperate, and hopefully you can still have two children who sleep at different timing, but both able to initiate sleep accordingly.
Thank you so much, doctors. Yeah, I'm very sure that it definitely sounds like a bit of a challenge, when parents have to put the children to bed at different timings. I don't know how you do it, Dr. Ting. Personally, for me, I will just enforce and say, no, both of you, you just have to sleep at the same time, but not every child is different. Every family is different. Yeah, we do our best, but there are some days where because of different activities, when my younger one have to sleep earlier, and then when the older one, is back from the activity, then I'll just, like what Dr. Tan had mentioned, I will remind him, okay, you have to be quiet when you go in, or like, there'll be no lights that'll be switched on, so you have to walk in the dark to your bed.
My second one, I make sure he tiptoes in, but
Yes.
the only reason why I keep them separate, I separate their bedtime, is because if they go in at the same time, they'll just like end up pillow fighting and whatever. So they'll end up not sleeping.
Talking to each other.
Yeah, so I purposely have a 10-minute kind of or 15-minute
interval.
So that the first one's already wound down, and then the second one go in quietly.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. So there's really many different
Yeah, I
configurations.
think it really depends on how your kids are, the dynamics, their
Correct.
temperaments. Yeah,
That's right. Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for that question. I hope we have managed to answer, to the best of our ability. All right. And we have another question from another parent, Xiao Guang. Any activities to recommend to settle my child for bed? Very good question, because I think this is something that a lot of parents would want to know, whether or not am I doing the right thing. Doctors, I keep hearing from you guys saying bedtime routine is the schedule, the things that you do before bedtime. But I don't know if I'm really doing the right thing. So maybe you can advise. I wouldn't say right or wrong, but rather what's appropriate. Yeah.
So bedtime routine is essentially what you kind of do before bed. And generally, I would say it's maybe about the 20 minutes to 30 minutes before you sleep. So generally, our advice maybe keep it short, about 3 to 5 activities. And this should start away from the bedroom and gradually move towards the bedroom. These activities should also be quite relaxing, calming, so that it can be like a wind down thing for your child. So this bedtime routine also should be quite consistent, so that every day if your child does these few activities in the same order, it's kind of signaling the body and the brain that, okay, it's time to relax and time to go to bed. I'll just share the bedtime routine for my own kids. So generally they will have a shower, and then they'll change their pajamas, and then they'll drink a nice warm glass of milk, and then they brush their teeth, and then it's reading storybooks for a while, and then just say a short prayer, and then they go to bed. So this happened every day, weekdays, weekends, all since they were infants. So yeah, I mean, to them, they really know this by heart. Yeah. So I mean, in terms of activities wise, one more thing is that for bedtime routine, we will advise not to have any screen time involved in this routine. So there shouldn't be any screen time at least 1 hour prior to bed. And some of the activities that you can consider to wind down, apart from, depends on what your child likes also. If your child likes to listen to music, then that can be something that they can do to sort of calm down. If they like to read, then actually reading books is very good, but we would advise for those proper old school books instead of the screen. Yeah.
From iPad.
iPad, Kindle.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think that's the very good point also. Talking about, screen-free time before they go to bed. I think that in itself is also part of a bedtime routine. Yeah. So I think what this parent is also asking, any activities to recommend. I believe Dr. Ting have already shared quite a number of examples, from reading storybooks to listening to music. It can be just, a quick winding down time, just finding out how each other's day, and then slowly say good night, and it's time for bed, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Ting, for sharing on that note. I have one important question, because being in a Singapore context, right? And then for me, because I have an older child, and I'm sure that all the parents who have older children, whether they are in P5 or P6 this year, PSL year, we do know there's an increase in activities. There's it's not just studies, but it could be sports. I mean, their extra curriculum activities. So because of the I would say different season of their life, the amount of activities actually increases.
Yes.
So we do hear a lot about having good quality sleep, the duration, what we need to do. But honestly, how feasible, it is? How will you encourage the parents out there who are really experiencing and going through this phase, with their upper primary school going children? Yeah. On helping the children to get the good quality sleep that they need, in spite of all these increased amount of activities that they have to be handling. Yeah.
I think for the upper primary school children, especially for the PSLE years, it's to begin with a very stressful year. So what happens is actually we still recommend 9 to 11 hours of sleep. Of course, some children can function with lesser, that's why it's 9. Some people may need more. You really need to know how many hours of sleep your children truly need. And on a day-to-day variation, some days you may sleep better, some days you may not sleep so well. So for example, on those days when you have not slept so well, there was a day packed with a lot of activities, actually that's when you will have to consider taking some naps. And when I say naps, actually most children, by the time they go into primary school, they really do not need naps. So the fact that they need naps, and if it's very long, it's also a very subtle sign they're not having good quality of sleep. Then therefore, we would then work on the night time, the wake time, as well as the sleep time, to see whether we can achieve that good amount of sleep. But if they can't, and because nowadays activities are truly quite packed and they have some homework they need to do, then we really need to allow them some naps, but it cannot be longer than 15 to 30 minutes, and it should be earlier in the afternoon, right straight away when they come back from school, rather than late into the evening when they're very tired after doing homework. Because if they do long naps or very late naps, then they may affect the sleep time. Correct. They may affect the sleep time. They may not be able to initiate sleep later. They may run into problem.
That's true.
So that will be something that I will consider. That we can introduce nap times, but they must be really short. And I like to call them power naps. That means 15 minutes, not more than 30 minutes, and definitely not going for 1 to 2 hours, and definitely not in the late evenings. So that would be something that we can consider. And sometimes I also like to take a look at what happens on weekends. For example, if you notice that on weekends, your children does sleep at the same time, but they do wake up a little bit later, then you know that is the duration of time that they actually need. And therefore, if that's the time that you actually need, then that is what you need to achieve on weekdays, so that you know that it is very regular sleep time, wake time, so that on weekdays, when they suddenly have to wake up earlier, or they have to sleep a little bit earlier, but actually they can't initiate sleep because they usually sleep later on weekends, then that is something that we can try to bring forward the sleep time on weekdays, so that we can achieve that quality sleep time
that they need, right?
Yes, correct.
All right. So what I'm hearing from you is also that do our very best to ensure that the routine stay as similar as possible on the weekdays and weekends, right? Don't have too far a variation. If not, it's very hard to transit back into the usual routines.
Yeah, and you'll be shocked to find out in one of our way of making sure that children sleep well, actually we want them to have more physical activities, more sun, go out in outdoor activities. It's not just about it's true, it's to tire them out a little bit, but it's also for them to realize that it is night time. So therefore, that when night comes, when it's darker, the melatonin secretion comes readily from your body, and therefore you will readily fall asleep, and you'll be able to have better quality of sleep. So some parents may think that, oh no, there are so many activities that is in the daytime. Are they truly having enough rest in the night? But you will be shocked to find out some people really can function like this. And of course, we also see patients who are having national training for competitive sports and everything. Some of them really are able to cope, and they do come to our clinic and tell us that, oh no, I'm not able to cope with this amount of activities, but some of my other friends can. So I will always say, oh, do you check in with them about their sleep habits and everything? And sometimes they realize that, oh, it's actually they are not having that good amount of quality of sleep. They're just revising too much of their homework. Maybe they really need to manage their time a little bit better. And sometimes they sleep better, they function better, and they actually feel better because they can actually function better in their competitive sports, their CCA, and they're actually happier. So we really need to find out as to why we think that they're not functioning appropriately sometimes.
So I think from what you've just shared, everything goes back to quality sleep, right? It's like have good quality sleep. It will lead to, better academic focus, results, even in the sports that they are doing, right? And basically their overall well-being, everything will be taken care of. So if there's one thing that we need to prioritize, it's quality sleep, all right? If you're thinking, where should I start? What should I do? Quality sleep, right? Okay, thank you very much for sharing, Dr. Tan. That's very insightful. All right, so I think before we move on even to another segment, let's do a quick wrap up on this part about sleeping habits. Because I think a lot of parents, they are definitely, asking about what can we do? How do we implement all these good sleeping habits, right? So as you can see, a bedtime routine is very crucial in developing good quality sleep for our children. For example, going to bed regularly at the same time, weekdays, weekends, which we have just mentioned, right? Include 3 to 5 enjoyable, relaxing activities, things that our children really enjoy that can help them to relax. Yeah. And also try to avoid stimulating activities, whether is it like exercises or even screen time. Yeah. So that's why, it's good to implement screen-free time 1 hour before bedtime. I mean, that's that would be very helpful
That
and
would be
useful.
ideal, lah,
Ideal,
but sometimes
ideal.
it can be challenging. So
Yes.
yeah, but I think minimally you try 30 minutes at least, but 1 hour would be definitely ideal.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the ideal, right? But of course, parents, do give yourself a pat on the shoulder, if you are already implementing it. Although it may not be 1 hour before bedtime. I mean, even if it's just like 10 minutes, 15 minutes before that, I think it's a good progression because with progress, that's where, you can celebrate this small wins, and it will help you to move one step closer to helping your children to develop good quality sleep. Yeah. And I think another thing that we want to also emphasize and encourage all the parents, another good sleeping habit would be parental role modeling. What would you say about that? Role modeling. I think it's very important that it starts from the parents also.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah, right. And then our children, sometimes they will be like, mommy, you're also still on the phone, right? Daddy, you see, you're still on the laptop, still busy working, and they're like, then why you like urging us to go and sleep, and then no screen time, etc. But all of you are actually using it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, in clinics, quite often when I tell the children like about all these healthy sleep habits, then they're like, my daddy also.
Right, all the truth comes out, right? Yeah, definitely. So I think parents out there, if we are thinking, of one way on how to help our children to develop good quality sleep, I think it really starts with us first. Us as parents to really role model the way for them. Yeah.
And one of the most practical tips that I will share with all parents out there is that in order to parent modeling, one of the most important and good time would be really during dinner times. That's when the whole family sits down. If we gather to eat a meal together, that's when we can share quality conversations.
Yeah.
And that's when, if you're a parent out there, you really should try to put your phone away. And therefore, in the night, when the night comes and some of our children say, I really need to have my screen time, and you say, if I'm able to do that during dinner time, I really hope you're able to do that just prior to your sleep time so that you can have good quality sleep. And sometimes during that 30 minutes and 1 hour, earlier we have mentioned about reading storybooks, we are doing some wind down activities, but it may not apply to all. There are some children out there who no longer read storybooks. And one thing to really engage all these children is really to have quality conversations.
Yes.
Find out a little bit about what happened in school that day, how were their times with their friends, there anything that you want to tell me. And that's when they feel that, oh, actually, I can have quality conversations not by chatting with my friends on WhatsApp. I can have quality conversations with my parents. My parents is interested in my life, and that's why he wants me to put my phone away. And therefore, that will make them realize that, oh, maybe it's important to put that screen time away so that I can have good conversations with my parents.
I think I can hear my children saying, heard that, mommy? Well, anyway, I think that's definitely a very good advice and good pointers over there, because I think when we talk about quality sleep, it's not just about just how to put our child to bed, but rather, the preparation to leading up towards that good quality sleep is also equally important. And I think it's a very good pointer from Dr. Tan, mentioning about having that quality conversation, showing them that there are actually other alternatives that could be even better than screen time. Yeah, like really spending time with the family is so precious because everyone's just so busy. It's just so, as our children are getting older, you find that it's just so hard to gather everybody, at a table, having meal together and having that quality conversation. Yeah, so, from young, if we develop this, quality conversation, it also will become a habit in them to want to spend time with the family more than their handphones. Yeah. All right. On this note, we'd like to jump to our poll question number 3. What is the key challenge in establishing healthy sleep routines and habits for your child? And I think this question, has been asked to all our parents out there. And let's take a look at some of the numbers that have been shown. So 43% mentioned that there's too many tasks to complete before sleep. 25% says that managing screen use before sleep, it can be quite a challenge. 18% says my child does not listen to me. I really try to enforce, I tell them everything, what they need to do, but they just probably wouldn't want to cooperate. And of course, we do have a handful again, 13% that says they are not sure how to start building healthy sleep routines. Wow. I think over here we can definitely tell that all the parents, I think it's part of a journey, right, with our
Indeed, yeah.
children. If there's any parents out there who don't face any challenge, please let us know right now. You can share with us your, secret. Yeah. But I think every parent do experience different types of challenges, but they will experience challenges, especially when we are, trying to encourage our children, towards developing good sleep routines or even good sleep habits, right? So Dr. Tan and Dr. Ting, take a look at some of these challenges. Is this something that is also common among the patients that you meet, among your children?
I have to say I'm not shocked that too many tasks to complete before sleep has become a choice, because in our day-to-day life, it's really true that for our children these days, they really have a lot of things they have to do.
Yep.
Sometimes they have other activities outside of school that they have to complete, and depending on what age they are at, they may have more, assessment books and tuitions that to attend, and which is
especially
why
those who are having children at PSLE, P5, P6.
Yeah, which is why I think I agree that we all have to acknowledge that this is a problem. And sometimes in my clinics, when some children come in, some parents will tell me that, there are really just too many things to do, and the children will actually share with me why they feel that some tasks are actually important to complete. They recognize that it's important to go for tuition and things like that, but sometimes they may not be able to cope. And that's when then we have to prioritize, and that's when we have to tell the parents, you really have to choose certain tasks out of the so many tasks that the children has to do. But that doesn't compromise, again, like I said, our routine sleep, bedtime routine. We just need to make sure that we shouldn't let someone be doing his homework all the way to the point whereby you close the book, you go to bed, because it just breaks that routine. But there will be some days that are like that. But you would have to then reinforce, you have to keep exploring the children. Is there a possible better ways to try to manage time to see whether we can have all these tasks completed within the stipulated time? And if we really can't, then we really have to start to choose which are the important tasks. And sometimes in clinics, I've actually have patients who come up to me, and then we have realized that, actually they prefer to do sports. They may not really want to do dancing, but it was really the mom's favorite thing that really want the child to do dancing. And then they come to a compromise, and after that, subsequently, when they come back to the clinic, everyone is happier, they have better quality of sleep, they function better, and then they have to cope, they are able to better cope with their day-to-day functioning. So really, really need to find out what's the reason as to why they're having too many tasks. So, and one way that I always encourage children is that I'm pretty sure there are a lot of other people, a lot of tasks, and you see some of your friends that, hey, they can do it. Why can't I? And that's when we have to identify the problem. Has it got to do with our sleep duration, the quality of sleep? Maybe if you can improve better quality, making sure that your environment is really quiet, conducive, you may not wake up that often, and therefore you, with that amount of sleep duration, it will be enough for you to function day to day.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tan. I think that's why just now earlier on I asked the question, is it really feasible in our current day situation where our children are really, experiencing an increased amount of activities? And I think that's,
I think he brought up a very good point about asking the child. So I think a lot of times, a lot of parents just like, they know what they want for their kids, but actually it's very important to have that conversation with your kid to ask them what they feel is the problem that they are facing when it comes to trying to meet the demands of their school life and all the other demands that they have. Yeah. So maybe it's, if you're always struggling with the schedule, then it's time to really look at your child's schedule and have an open conversation with your child.
Yeah. I think that's really a very good point. I think that was something that I actually did with my younger daughter. She's, like EP3 this year. So I think there was a point where last year she felt that she had too many activities. Not because I wanted her to join in, all right, disclaimer. But actually she's very interested to learn. So she's very curious. And then, when she discovered, these activities interesting, that activity is interesting. I want to try. And then so we don't mind her trying. But after a while, she realized that it's just too tiring because there's just too many activities and it takes a toll on the body itself.
I think every child also needs that time where they have time to just do nothing nothing planned for a while, that unstructured time to just relax and wind down.
And that was the change that I noticed. So this year when we really like tuned down some of the activities that we've tried, tested, all right, this is not something that you want to continue with, all right, and then there's like really buffer time, pockets of just free time of doing nothing. It was so good on her mental well-being. Of course it helps the parents too when your child feels good you will feel good too, for sure. All right. We do have a question that is coming in from another parent, Jiang Zhengping. Thank you for that question. For family where it is not possible to give their kids the recommended 10 hours sleep, is there any tips on improving sleep quality to make up for the lost sleep quality? All right, I think this is also quite a relevant question. Maybe a lot of families could be also facing that experience. So anyone would like to take that question?
Yeah, so I think it's quite common. I mean, it's a very real struggle, right? That we know the guidelines, but actually to implement these guidelines and to really achieve that 10-hour sleep is always difficult. I think that we can always keep trying. I think firstly, we don't just say it's not possible and then don't try. I think we still keep trying. But yes, to answer the question of how we can try to improve the sleep quality, I think that really goes back to sleep hygiene. So the consistent bedtime, which then sometimes is maybe a bit difficult because if your kid's sleeping too late, then maybe you just want to bring forward the bedtime a little bit, like maybe like 15 minutes, which that 15 minutes may seem nothing to you, but actually it may be a lot to the child. I think the other thing is also to other than the consistency of the bedtime, is also the bedtime routines that we have said earlier, ensuring that the sleep environment, as I've mentioned earlier, is very conducive for the sleep, so that at least when they're asleep, they don't get woken up by various things. Yeah, and also to make sure that there is nothing that is really preventing your child from falling asleep. So in terms of the sleep quality, I mean, some children, if they have certain like medical conditions or even like if they have pain somewhere that they can't really sleep properly, or like poorly controlled eczema that they're always itchy and they can't sleep properly, then those are the things that maybe it might be worth trying to address to see whether that can also help with your child's sleep quality. If there are some children who are always very stressed and always like thinking about things, then that also may affect their sleep quality. So apart from environment, I think as what we have said earlier, good amount of physical activity, sunlight exposure that helps with the melatonin secretion and improve the sleep quality, avoiding caffeine in the daytime in all your drinks, that will help your child to be able to, so if they only can sleep at 9, then at least they will sleep faster instead of being awake until 10. And also trying to avoid maybe like not having a too full meal before sleep, because that can make you feel very full, very uncomfortable, and maybe difficult to fall asleep also.
Or if you don't eat enough and you feel hungry, then you may want to wake up to eat. Then you actually affect your sleep quality because you get frequently awakened. And another very practical tip, it depends on also how some children are. Nowadays, some children are a little bit more anxious about their schoolwork. Having a clock at your bedside sometimes can be a little bit stressful for the kids. They keep thinking, I need to wake up, or do I sleep enough? So sometimes I do tell parents that maybe you want to take away the clocks if your child is someone who likes to check the timing, because it takes away the anxiety in them, and therefore maybe that will improve on the sleep quality because they will just sleep as per their usual and wake up when they have sleep sufficiently.
That's a very interesting point. Yeah, it really depends on your children, what exactly are they feeling, what are they stressed by? Is it anxiousness, is it worries, or is it they're just too full, or they are hungry? There are different aspects. Yeah, but what's most important, I think what we're hearing from both doctors is that if we can't get that exact quantity of sleep, go for quality first. I think that is what is crucial, that can really help your children to improve their well-being, and of course, their focus and also their health in itself. Okay, I think we do have time just to answer one final question in our live session from Joyce. Thank you for this question. Do we need to put the kids to sleep for them to sleep better, or they should be sleeping on their own? Do we need to put the kids to sleep for them to sleep better, or they should be sleeping on their own? I think what Joyce perhaps is asking is that, in order to achieve the quality sleep, would it be better for the parent to be, putting the kids to sleep to ensure their quality sleep, or actually we should encourage and maybe train the children to sleep on their own? What's your take on this?
I think it really means, it's really a question of what do you mean by putting your kids to sleep?
Yeah.
I think most parents, sleeping independently means your kid can fall asleep by themselves when they are in the room themselves, and they don't need you to be next to them, petting them, or just your presence being there and waiting for them to fall asleep for like the half an hour or even 1 hour. but I mean, that means sleeping independently, but that's a bit different from putting our kids to bed. So I think every child would love that like last minute bedtime cuddle, good night cuddle with parents, and that really helps with the connection with parents. So I would recommend actually that you can be there to bring your child to the bedroom and, you know, spend that 5-10 minutes with them, just talking to them a bit more, not too much, talking to them a little bit
If not, you get them all excited again.
Sometimes they like to talk. Suddenly, a lot of things to talk. Yeah, but I mean, you know, like being there and just like talk a little bit, and then, you know, you can say good night, I love you, that kind of thing, like bedtime cuddles. I think that's actually good. Yeah, instead of just like bye, go to your bed, bye, good night, and then, you know, just leave them in their bed. But if your kid needs you to be sitting there for like half an hour, then if you find that, you know, that's really quite frustrating for you because you always have a lot of things to do, and then you're just like stuck there having to try to make your kids fall asleep, then if this is something that you feel like you want to get them to learn to sleep independently, that might be something that we can try. Some of the tips that I recommend for parents who are struggling with this is you can sort of gradually try to wean your presence. But actually, before you do that, you really need to tell your child that you are going to do this, because there will be some resistance, there will be some fussing. Yeah. And then you can, if you are, say, for example, if you are lying on the bed with your child most of the time, then you just gradually move yourself away from the bed further and further towards the door. And this can be done gradually with every 3 to 5 days, depending on your child's like temperament and tolerance. And I think you also need to keep telling your child that, yeah, the aim is not for you to sleep independently. The aim is for you to feel comfortable in staying in your room by yourself. Yeah. I mean, the other way you can do it is also to have increasing time duration, where you start off with maybe leaving the room for about a minute and then coming back, and then 3 minutes and 5 minutes, and just gradually increase the duration away from the room, eventually until your child falls asleep. Whatever method you choose, I think it really doesn't matter. I think at the end of the day is, if kids sleep on their own, actually it does help in terms of the quality, because as Dr. Tan mentioned, when children wake up in the middle of the night, if they're able to sleep by themselves, then during these night awakenings, they will then be able to fall asleep by themselves independently as well. So there are some children who, if they always need their parents to be there by their side to fall asleep, then sometimes in the middle of the night when they wake up, then they actually run to their parents' room and look for their parents because they need their parents there. So I'm not sure what exactly it depends on what's the problem that you're really struggling with, but there are various methods to cope with this. I think the important thing is that you just also need to work with your children, and whatever method you choose, this has to be communicated to your child, and whatever method you choose, this also has to be consistent with the various caregivers that's looking after your child as well.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good point over there. Yeah, because I think it really depends on what exactly is the issue. But I think what I'm hearing from you is also, you know, if our child is not able to self-soothe themselves to sleep, especially in the middle of the night, then they're going to come knocking on your door, waking you up, and then it's going to affect your quality sleep also. And then it's going to be a vicious cycle going around the whole entire family, and everyone will just be so tired and so drained. And that will affect, you know, of course, the quality relationship that we have with one another in the family. So that's a very good pointer. So thank you very much, Dr. Ting. Okay, and I mean, we have come to the end of our final question, but thank you so much, parents, for being so generous in sharing your concerns, your questions, you know, because I believe that with your question, we can all learn from one another. Yeah, and I think we do have one quote from a parent, Romel C. Avils. I believe it's all about discipline and explaining to our children on the importance of having good and enough sleep. Wow. Thanks for, you know, bringing this whole live session to a good close with this quote. I think it's very true. It's all about discipline. It's about preparing your children, talking to them about it, and getting them all ready, you know, to develop that good sleeping habits.
Yeah, I just want to touch on the point about discipline. I think we can be a bit flexible with this as well. Yeah, I don't think this should be something like you scold your kids, or you're like, no, you go and sleep right now. No, you have to sleep 10 hours. The doctor said you sleep 10 hours, you go and sleep. No,
yeah, actually, it's a quote that I think both of us, our heart rate went a little bit higher. Because I believe some parents will be like, you think I'm not disciplining my child? You think they don't want to fall asleep? I also want, but I've done what I can.
Yeah.
So it actually, and I really want to tell most parents, is every parents face different kind of problems.
Yep.
And sometimes when some parents share with other parents about how their children are not sleeping well, some parents may pass some passing comments and say that it's about discipline. And this parent, I'm pretty sure, will get very upset.
Yes.
But I prefer the word consistency.
Yes.
It's really about making a habit. And sometimes we all, after a few days of consistency, we give up. And then that, yes, becomes a bit of discipline. And it's not disciplining a child, it's disciplining on yourself to make sure that you're consistent to carry out what you have started off with, and telling yourself that you're going to make with some hurdles along the way, but you must make sure that you push it through and you must carry on what you're doing, because it may just take a little bit longer than another parent who is having good quality, who puts their children to sleep very easily compared to your children.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the word discipline really means like teaching, and it's not really about, like, discipline is not all about wanting your child to always cooperate with what you say. Discipline is us wanting to teach our children because we want them to grow well and be healthy. I think, to me, what is really important is really the connection between the parent and child.
Yes.
And sometimes it's not us about like telling your kids what to do all the time. It's harder to gain cooperation as compared to if we actually communicate with them properly. I'll just share a personal example on like how sometimes I try and communicate with my own kids lah. So I also deal with bedtime resistance, as I have mentioned. So actually this happened quite recently, just last week. So my son was having his usual, like, okay, not really usual, he does this sometimes, but so he was having a bedtime resistance. He was like crying and saying, I don't want to go to sleep. And so I approached him and I responded in a calm manner, and I was like, oh, so why do you not want to go to sleep? And he said, oh, I just want to play. And then I was like, okay, so what is it that you want to play? Like, and he said, and he started telling me about what he wanted to do and why he didn't want to sleep. And actually, by the time he finished telling me, he was kind of more calm already. And so now that when he was calmer, then I started like trying to teach. So I said, do you know why you need to sleep early? And actually he knew. So he said, yeah, because I need to wake up early tomorrow morning for school. And then, I just tried to put in a little bit more. And then we went on to this like problem solving thing where I said, okay, I can see that this is a problem and it's difficult for you to go to sleep because there's so many things else that you want to do. But what can we do to try and solve this problem? And how can we prevent this from happening like so frequently?
Yep.
Yeah. So we started brainstorming ideas, and he came up with this idea. He said, I'm going to invent a robot that looks just like me. And this robot is going to fall asleep for me while I play. And tomorrow the robot is going to wake up and go to school for me while I sleep. Like, wow, great. This is a very good idea. So what you need to do now, you need to go and sleep so that you'll be smarter and you will learn better. And then one day you can invent this robot. He bought it. So he went to sleep happily that night, and I averted like some big tantrum. Yeah, but I think what I want to really share is that it's important to sometimes really understand why our kids are having that bedtime resistance, to find out, what their concerns are, acknowledge the feelings of when they don't want to, and also always approach with an angle of curiosity. Like, so be curious, not furious, right? Yeah. And then wait till they're calm before we start teaching them. Because when they're upset by trying to tell them you need to sleep, then it doesn't really go in.
Yes.
Yeah. And so sometimes when we let them tell, if they already, that they know what they're supposed to do, then you ask them what they're supposed to do. And when they tell you themselves, actually it is easier. They are more likely to follow it. So like sometimes with the bedtime routine, after I'll be like, what do you need to do next after your milk? And then they will just go and brush their teeth themselves. As opposed if I say, go and brush your teeth, then they won't do it. And then I think it's also important to go through this problem-solving process with them, to really figure out what can be done. They can come up with crazy ideas and just accept all ideas and inject some humor in it. And sometimes it might work. Yeah, I mean, we didn't solve the problem. I mean, the problem is still there, but at least with this, that you actually improve that parent and child relationship, and you improve that connection with your child. So I managed to gain his cooperation without a tantrum, and this may not work all the time. So I mean, I'm sure I'll find a problem another day, but I think it's important to really remember that it's all about the connection between the parent and child. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ting. I think we all can, relate and appreciate even Dr. Ting's personal story. I think that's something that's very interesting. I mean, we might not always have a robot to divert our kids' attention. But what I'm also hearing from you, I picked up 3 key words, so far, what the doctor have been mentioning. One is consistency, right? That is very important to continue to persevere, in the routine that we are trying to establish for our children towards good quality sleep. And I think the second C that I heard from both of you is communication, right? It's very important to have that good communication with our children instead of just like, getting furious. Let's be curious together with them. See, another C, curious, right? Because I think, it doesn't help to solve the problem, fire fighting with fire. So rather, why not, then leads to another C that I've heard from you, being calm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think more and more.
Yeah. But I think that those are very good pointers. Just happen coincidentally that starts with letter C. But I think the calmness also plays a very big part. Because I think most of us would have experienced before, when our child, is not cooperating, and then, they're at the, whether it's a tantrum or they are just angsty, or they just like have that resistance, they don't want to sleep. And the next thing, if we just like continue to shout at them or insist that they need to do this, most of the time you find what happens.
But the calm part is difficult.
It's difficult, definitely. Yeah. So parents, really give yourself a pat on your shoulders. If there's one good day, be proud of yourself because you have done well. All right. But sometimes as parents, we keep focusing on the problem, on what we are not doing well, what our kids are not, doing or experiencing. And thus we feel that, I'm doing a lousy job as a parent. But in fact, we want to encourage all of you, think back on the good days and really focus on how much you've actually progressed and really encourage yourself that you have done a great job. Yeah. So on this note, I think time is running out, but we definitely, can continue on this topic, but we'd love to hear, some final words from both of you. If there's, something that you like to encourage the parents out there, what would be your final words for them?
Okay. So, thanks everyone for coming and tuning in tonight. I think you should really give yourself a pat on the back indeed, because just by coming here tonight on a weekday night, when I know all of you are really very busy, it just means that you have already prioritized and you are already prioritizing your child's sleep. So Pam had four C's.
Yes.
Is it 4 C's? I have A, B, C.
Oh, there we go. Another.
So my A is attachment. So that goes back to what I've been talking about, connection with your children. So trying to build good connection with your kids, having good attachment as much as you can, increase your daytime interaction with your kids, because that would help with the connection, right? Quality time with your children. And usually when they feel like loved and secure, it's easier for them to cooperate with us when we need them to do it. Yeah. Secondly, B is boundary. So I think we have talked about this earlier with all our bedtime routines, consistent bedtime, screen time boundaries. So these are the small things that if we can set clear and firm boundaries and try and keep to them, that actually will help, because children need some predictability and stability in their lives. So with these boundaries, and they know what they can do and what they cannot do, then actually it does help them to cooperate. Yeah, and but the other thing is also to be flexible. So we really don't need to be too rigid. There can be some cheat days on and off. Just, The third thing is C is consistency. Yeah, which I think we have talked a lot about already. So being consistent, not just with the same caregiver, but also with the various caregivers that is looking after the child. So A, B, C, attachment, boundaries, and consistency.
All right, I hope you got that down. All right, and over to you. Thank you so much, Dr. Tim. Are you going to give a D, F?
Maybe I can come up with a D. So again, thank you everyone for coming for today's session. I really appreciate your time, and I have to say that being here, I really hope today you have got to understand the importance of sleep, why is very important for your child's good health, and therefore we hope that you have got to learn some sleep habits, some practical tips that you can take home with. And I know every child is very different. Every child has a different duration of sleep. Everyone's quality of sleep is also a little different. So we really need to identify what is the way they can do to increase the duration as well as the quality of sleep. And lastly, if you're out there, you are facing some problems and you do not feel that you are well supported, you don't feel that anyone understands you, you are truly not alone. There are a lot of parents who actually face sleep problems at various stages of their children's life. There are some children who sleep really well when we're a toddler, but when we're in primary school, they really have a lot of problems. And some parents get so upset, they don't understand why is it like that. But sometimes we truly need to understand what is the issue that the child is facing. Sometimes it has got to do with family relationships, relationships with friends at school, the amount of schoolwork at school, whether they're having some difficulty with coping with what's happening in the family. It could be a loss of a loved one, a pet, a small little thing that you did not expect could actually affect that sleep. And that's the problem that we need to identify. And therefore, sleep is a journey for most parents. It's not something that you can solve within a day. It's not something that I can prescribe a medicine and you can think that, okay, the next day the child is going to sleep well. You have to persevere. You have to come up with a routine, a regular sleep time, a regular wake time, conducive environment. But it's about perseverance. So maybe to add on to your attachment, boundaries, consistency, I would say the D would be determination. You should not give up. You would have to persevere and you have to be determined enough to make sure that your child gets the good sleep duration and quality.
Thank you so much for your words of inspiration and of course words of encouragement and practical tips and strategies for our parents out there. So we would like to thank Dr. Ting and Dr. Tan for being here with us even this evening. I think like what both doctors have mentioned, parenting is really a journey. It's not a destination. So there are some good days, there are some challenging moments, but let's continue to persevere, and be consistent with what we have been, trying out, testing out. And if there are some days, where things don't work, it's okay. Give yourself a pat on the shoulder and say, you know what? Tomorrow we'll find another method. Tomorrow we'll find another way to move forward. But remember, progression, it's one step closer, to you helping your children to develop that quality sleep. Yep. So parents, we really want to thank all of you for turning up today. And if you like what we have shared, you found that is useful, in the comment section, we will be dropping a link. That's where you can actually receive your infographic information. All right, to tell you more on this topic on quality sleep. So till our next very exciting parenting adventure, if we were to meet next time, I'm Pamela, your host for this evening. I want to wish everyone a very good night. Sleep and rest, and may your hearts always be filled even with the love of your family. Take care.